Hi, I'm Jim Connell. I'm here with the Craftsman Cafe. George and I thought it'd be kind of cool to perhaps begin a series with real estate agents. I'm fascinated by the business, and I love Libertyville, obviously, and I think people have a lot of questions regarding real estate. The market is really tight, and we thought it'd be a cool idea to get some insight from people that we know and that we respect. And Andy is someone that I respect. He was on the other side of a transaction that actually went south, if you remember that.
It did.
And we ended up buying another home when we moved in. It was around 07, 08, and you were a class act all the way through, and that was my first impression with you. So anyway, let's just jump into it, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me where you grew up.
I grew up in Libertyville. Family landed here in the early 70s, and we just stayed. So it was a little farm town when we came, and now, of course, it's very different now, right?
Absolutely.
In a good way. But we just have always loved the charm of the town and the people and the proximity to the city and to Wisconsin as well.
Yeah, what'd your dad do?
He is retired and owned, he was a small business, owned a small business and was primarily a subcontractor for Abbott. And did kind of like office supplies, and believe it or not, back in the day, he actually fixed calculators, which it's kind of crazy to think, right? And he'd be in the basement putting them all together. But
that's awesome.
It was really cool. Yeah.
So, what led you to the real estate? I mean, you've been doing it a while, right?
I've been doing it a while. I've been licensed since 1996, so the summer of '95. I just had a lot of friends whose parents were realtors, and they were either realtors or they were loan officers, right? And I had a real good friend of mine, Tom Pop, still is a good friend, and his mom, Linda Pop, who's a highly successful loan officer here in town with Provident Mortgage. I approached Linda and I said, hey, what do you think about this? Am I too young? Is this a crazy idea? And she said, no. She's like, absolutely, you should get into the business now. You're in your mid-20s. And she referred me to Tom Cruiser at Century 21 Cruiser in Siler. And I was very fortunate at a young age to be connected to Tom Cruiser and MJ Siler. They were wonderful mentors and really had a great understanding of how to own and operate a small business and to keep it profitable.
That's great. Yeah. That's a cool story, man. So you were with Cruiser and Siler for several years.
Several years. Total service was 12 years with Cruiser and Siler with Tom and MJ.
Okay. Yeah. So what led you to At Properties? When I was in Chicago, I had my eye on this company from the very beginning because Thad and Michael, right?
Yeah.
They were movers and shakers.
Big time.
And it was Sean Conlon as well.
Good old Sean.
And those guys were just tearing it up in the early mid-90s and in the early 2000s, and I was fascinated by the business. So tell me your story in terms of what led you to At Properties.
So there was this little thing called the complete collapse of the housing market. You may have heard of it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of change going on in the industry, and at the time I felt like, okay, we don't know when this is going to end. I mean, it was really a doom and gloom kind of time.
Sure was.
And I felt like when the market comes back, and I always knew that it would, I really needed to diversify myself. I had been following At Properties for a couple of years at the time, and I had been kind of a secret admirer. And they had just opened an office in Evanston. So they officially crossed over Howard Street, and they're moving into the suburbs. And I thought, well, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. So then I felt like, why not jump down into the North Shore? That market will come back a lot faster than Central Lake County, because Lake County got hit hard. I mean, we all got hit with the same hammer, right?
Yeah.
And it wound up being a really good move. It was scary, right? I didn't really have much of a network down there, so I kind of, at age 40, just kind of started all over again. So, but that's kind of what you have to do, and it wound up being a really, really good decision.
What do you like most about, I mean, At Properties is very, innovation is slightly overused at this point, but they really are. I mean, they've done some really interesting things, and they continue to do so, and they're growing like mad. I read the other day, $8 billion in sales.
Yes,
it's insane, man.
It's unbelievable, right?
What really attracts you to the firm?
Well, it was guerrilla marketing for one. I mean, Thad's approach to marketing was so cutting edge and so different, right? And I believe Mike and Thad really kind of looked at the industry like, it's kind of ass backwards a little bit, and it needs a new approach, right? It needs a fresh approach. It was really kind of tiring. So it was their kind of unique marketing that attracted me to app properties. The whole app thing, it's like, well, what is that? Are they an internet company? No, they're a full service brokerage company. It was I love their black and white photography and how they incorporated that into their ads. And then it's things like it's the cowboy and the bunny standing next to each other at the urinal, and you're not really sure what to make of it, but it keeps your attention, right? And it was just different, and I was just somehow just drawn to that, right? I mean, I'm kind of drawn to things that are a little outside of the box and left to center, and I thought, okay, these guys got something going on. I didn't know what it was, but what I knew is that it was really good and different.
That's great. That's great. Tell me a little bit about your practice.
I've been practicing for 21 years. I really take my business, I don't really consider myself a real estate broker or a realtor. I'm really a small business owner. And when you jump into the business, it's no different than opening a dry cleaner or a restaurant. I am an independent contractor, right? There is an impression that we don't work. All I do is work. It feels like from the time I get up until the time I go to bed, there's really something that you're supposed to be doing. But I'm more of a casual, I have a calm confidence to me, I believe. I'm not the guy who's going to show up in the Armani suit in the BMW. I think that's really kind of douchebag behavior. I really kind of try to like...
Does that really go on in real estate?
A little bit, I really just try to play off of my clients, and I really like to work at their pace. You have a lot of type A personalities who are really, really intense, and I can kind of adapt to that because I have a lot of friends and I have a family who are that way. I have family members like that. Sure. But then if you're kind of hippie and chill and we don't really know and we want to kind of take baby steps, I'm not going to be frustrated by that. That doesn't aggravate me. It takes a lot to aggravate me. It takes a lot to shock me. So really, it's kind of, what do you want? Tell me about you. Tell me about your goal. Why are you doing this? And then let's put the puzzle together to get to the finish line.
Yeah, that's great. Andy, tell me a little bit about your practice because you have a team.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
So I've partnered with Ben Glick, who is just a really sharp young man. Ben and I have known each other. I've known Ben's family forever, it feels like. And Ben and I both grew up between the Green Bridge and St. Mary's Road, right? And there's kind of, I've always felt kind of a kinship there, and that area is a hot topic right now with the changes to the proposed changes to the road being widening and the bike lanes and things
Marty
like that.
Neal's having a hell
Marty
of a time.
Neal's having a good time right now, Marty. And
I didn't interview him.
There is it's a very passionate point of view between kind of the old generation who hasn't moved and kind of the new generation that's coming in, and quite frankly, kind of the explosion of the popularity of endurance, athletics and sports and bikers. And there's just a lot more traffic going, right? Sure. So change is needed. Sure. So Ben and I just kind of are of a same kind of elk, right? We get it. We both kind of grew up in the same area. Sure. And we just have a really good blend of okay, I've been doing this for a while, versus Ben, who's he's not new to the business, but newer to the residential side of it. Ben comes from a commercial background and from a property management background. Gotcha. So he does have a lot of interaction with brokers. And many times Ben has been like, well, what do you think of this? And I'm like, gosh, I never looked at it that way. It's actually a really good idea.
Kind of that commercial perspective?
Commercial perspective, property management perspective, and then just being interested in just kind of the real estate business in general. So it's always, it's awesome because a lot of times you get caught up in this bubble, right? And you just kind of, you're interacting with other brokers and we all kind of get it, but when an outsider, someone coming into the industry who's new or newer, they may say, well, what does that mean? And that's just really cool. And have you thought about taking a different approach? Because quite frankly, I've always thought it was a little ass backwards the way you guys are doing it. Right. And the way we look at it sometimes is, well, that's just kind of the way it is, right? When in fact it could be a positive change. We're here, we want to try to figure out how can we help you. And then really, I always refer to as the puzzle, but just kind of put the puzzle together. It's really not about us, it's about you. and we work at the pace that you're comfortable with. You know, Ben was kind of born into the commercial world. He has extensive knowledge with property management. So we really feel that in addition to traditional real estate, we also have non-traditional skills that we can bring to you that ultimately we feel is value.
So break that down. Is that commercial real estate, small businesses, industrial,
all the
apartments?
above? All the above. Apartment management, commercial real estate, buildings. You know, we have a client. We just worked with a client recently who owns several apartments, and we put together a pro forma. And this is kind of where we think you're at in terms of your. And the guy knew everything, right? But I don't think he ever had anybody put it in writing for him.
Yeah.
So we kind of updated a pro forma, and it was really no question beneficial to the client, but it was really kind of fun to do because it was a little bit different. Instead of kind of the traditional, we're going to go look at a house and then kind of rip it, which a lot of people do, or word associate it, and then so that's it.
So along those lines, I was talking to you and Ben. We were having coffee, kind of prepping for this, and we were talking about processes.
Yes.
And something that caught my eye, caught my ear, was this whole idea of bundling.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to hack this up, so you got to straighten it out. Yeah. And I had never, I bought, 3 houses in my lifetime?
Right.
I've never really heard about this before, and it sounds pretty straightforward, but nobody brought it to my attention. Right. It would have been interesting when we were buying our house if that idea would have been presented. I don't know that we would have used it, but anyway, it's this bundling of renovation, and what I think when I think about it is I go back to the tight inventory piece.
Yes.
Okay, so talk a little bit about that because I think it's unique.
So Ben and I have an idea, and touring the homes, there's really not a lot of houses for sale right now, and many of the homes that are for sale, let's just say, need a little work. Not all of them, but some of them do. And a lot of my clients who walk through the house, when we're touring, it's kind of like they're a deer in the headlights. It's like, gosh, we want to redo the kitchen, we want to redo the bathrooms, we need to refinish the basement. And they don't really know where to start or how to start. They don't know a contractor. They don't have how much. Everybody always throws numbers around, but nobody really knows the true cost, right?
Mental math.
So wouldn't it be nice, as an option, wouldn't it be nice to be able to buy a home and say, my gosh, okay, I want to take on a mortgage. I also want to do renovations. I need to come up with my down payment money. I need to know how much my monthly mortgage payment is going to be. And then I also need to know the cost of construction. I need to have a contractor. Couldn't we bundle all those payments into one? Okay. And here's my payment right here. This is what it's going to be. And I get to renovate the home to how I want the house to look. And it can be something as simple as, okay, we're going to change out countertops. We're going to paint walls. Or we're going to knock a wall down. We're going to take a 3-bedroom, and that 3rd bedroom tri-level is a 10-by-9 room that's kind of dumb and tight. Why not knock the wall down and just have a really cool 2-bedroom, which kind of fits based on how do you live? Yeah, right. It's really trying to figure out, okay, what it is that you're looking for, and putting the plan together to where you can turn this into the house that you want, and we can kind of bundle everything into one payment.
Right. So it's kind of is it in a sort of a construct? I don't want to get too far in the weeds with this, but I think it's a cool idea. It's kind of like a construction loan.
It's like a construction loan or a home renovation loan.
Okay. Right. Okay. And you can marry that to your mortgage. And then the thing that struck me too was, so if I were to do that, if I walked in a house and I said, you know what, I want that wall out because I want the kitchen to be bigger, which is kind of what happens in Libertyville.
Totally.
Every house I walk into, I'm like, blow that one out. My house included, mainly.
Mine too.
You can get a plan from a contractor.
Yes.
Sign off on the plan.
Yes.
And have that property appraised at the value as if it's done.
As if it's done, right.
And that's legit.
It's legit.
Okay, so that's the part I didn't realize.
Yes, right.
And that's when you marry these two loans together, and you need to work with a good loan person to help walk you through that, right?
Absolutely. So it'd be Mark Bechtel through Wintrust Mortgage.
Wintrust, okay.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So So I want to ask you a question in terms of differentiation. There are a lot of real estate agents around.
I think you throw a nickel and you're going to hit a realtor, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy, right?
So the public has an impression, and I
Yes.
you know, I was in the financial world,
Yes.
and I know the value of an advisor. So I bring that to a lot of different things I do. You know, I'm not going to do surgery on myself. I'm not going to write my own legal papers and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think the real estate business is a hell of a lot harder than what meets the eye. Talk about that a little bit, because, you know, let's face it, realtors are lumped in with, you know, what value do they add? So how do you answer that question?
I would answer that question by if your broker is full-time, okay, so there are a lot of brokers who kind of work at it part-time a little bit. Maybe they sell 2 to 3 houses a year, maybe 5 houses. They kind of do it maybe to keep themselves busy. But the agent or the broker, we're called brokers now, by the way, so it's kind of a change, the shift in the industry that happened within the last couple of years. So when you hear me say broker, your broker really has to be full-time. This is what they do for a living. This is kind of their life, right? This is how they pay for dinner. So you want to work with a broker who is in it for the long haul, and they actually know what's going on, and they have an idea as to what's going on with the inventory, but really a really thorough command on how to shepherd you through the whole process, because it's a maze, right? And it's very confusing, and it's a scary place. So your broker really needs to kind of guide you and more or less always have an answer, or find the ability to find the answer, because everyone doesn't always have the answer. But it's tapping into the resource of getting that information to you and explaining it to you in terms that's very simple to understand.
Okay, so you said something there that was interesting. With a tight market too, I keep coming back to that because I know I've got some friends that are thinking about moving or are moving, and it's a tight market. How does an agent keep their ear to the ground and have sort of a market before it hits the market? Is that an accurate way to say it?
It is. So how that would work is definitely it's your network or your sphere of influence, and it's just kind of interacting with people. Hey, I'm hearing this house comes on the market. And then secondly, what's really important is App Properties has a really cool tool. We call it the Agent App, or referred to as the Agent App. And that's an internal communication that agents can share the information on a listing that may be coming on within the next 2 to 3 weeks, or what's commonly referred to as like a pocket listing, right? So I would put on the Agent App, hey, I've got a listing coming on in Libertyville. It's $450,000, which is a sweet spot. That's a really tough price point to get in, and it has good bones. It has everything going on except maybe a dated kitchen, which is kind of simple to fix. Welcome to show before we officially go live on July 1st. And I'll have any number of agents who will contact me saying, get me in now before we go live, so I can get my client into this house before the sign goes up. And now the client has to compete with all the other buyers.
Give me an idea of how many deals like that happen a month. Right now
in round figures, I would say probably, and again, this is just riffing off the cuff, maybe 30%.
Really?
Could be higher. Yeah.
So that's a big
significant,
percentage.
right? And to be perfectly frank, other real estate brokers have similar communication. It could be at an office meeting and just standing up saying, I'm taking a listing in 2 weeks. It could be something manual, right? It could be posting a flyer in front of the coffee machine. But what I really love, one of the things I love about App Properties is that Agent App. You just blast it out to the at world, and you can put pictures. You can. There's so many different things that you can post a video. You can do a simple video tour. And then that goes. And what's really cool about this app is it doesn't just go to 2,000 agents or how many agents we have, but it goes to the right agents. So it'll go to agents who are specifically looking for Libertyville real estate. So an agent who's practicing in Elmhurst, for example, they probably don't care about Libertyville because they're so deep in Elmhurst or whatever market. So instead of going to 2,000, it may go to 80, but it's going to the right 80 people.
Got it.
Right?
Got it. Okay. You guys probably fill out like a profile or something like that helps the algorithm
absolutely, with the algorithm and hashtagging and things of that nature.
Got it. What advice would you give someone that's going to list their home or are in the market to buy a home, what are 3 pieces of advice you would give them in terms of engaging with an agent?
So, great question. I would ask for a referral. Like, the power of the referral is golden, right? So you want to ask your friend or your colleague or a family member, hey, who have you used in the past, and who do you like and why, right? I mean, that's really the best way. If you really don't know anyone, then secondly really is the online search, and you want to take a look at testimonials. You want to take a look at past sales. Is this broker actually engaged? Are they putting deals together, or they haven't taken a listing in over a year and they're kind of working at it part-time?
Yeah.
In terms of advising someone, hey, I'm thinking about listing my house. What should I do? You want to get at least 2 opinions on price, because you just, unless it depends on the relationship that you have with your broker. If you work with a broker for years, then odds are you're probably good with just going of 1. But you want to get at least 2 broker price opinions, maybe even 3. I mean, I was in the market for a roof 2 summers ago, and I got 7 estimates, and that's for a roof. This is like the biggest asset that you own. I mean, this is the nest egg, right? And then secondly, I'm a big fan of pre-inspections, right? Why not have an inspector come out and just do a passive home inspection on your house, not a full blown. We're gonna overturn every stone, but let's look at the roof, the foundation, the plumbing, the electric, just to have a basic idea, so there's no surprises when that home inspection report comes. And then thirdly, depending on the property and the uniqueness, I love getting an independent third-party appraisal done.
Okay.
Because,
well, don't you have to do that?
We do what's called a market evaluation, which essentially is the same, but an appraiser may have a different approach and a different set of eyes at looking at the value of your home, right? And then that now becomes a wonderful marketing tool. So you can, I mean, it's a private number, right? You don't have to publish it anywhere.
Right.
If it's a number that doesn't work for you, you put it in your back pocket. If it's a number like, hey, look at what an appraiser said my house is worth, in addition to my broker, that now becomes a really good marketing piece.
Gotcha. Go back to the pre-inspection. When do you do that?
You would do it before you list your house, right? And you would just have a home inspector come out.
Oh, so if I'm selling.
So this is you if you're listing your home,
okay,
right? Yes, there's an expense. Yes, the seller would pay, or you could. Well, I don't want to talk about. I mean, the broker may pay for it. It depends on how the service fee is aligned.
That can all be negotiable.
It's all negotiable, right? Everything. But if I were to sell my house, I would have an inspection done on my house prior, because there's things that have gone on with my house that I may not know. So many people didn't know that they've got 5 outlets that aren't working, or nobody knows if their GFI outlet in the kitchen is functional or not, or maybe there's water in the corner that you're getting in your crawl space. How many people go into their crawl space? Not a lot.
Yeah.
There
I try to stay out of there.
Right, try to stay. It's a scary place. And why? Or maybe there's a settlement crack going on that could be leading to bigger trouble down the road.
Gotcha.
So it
really puts you in the driver's seat.
It puts you in the driver's seat, and then the inspection report can be also used as a marketing tool to sell your home, right? And FYI, corporate relocation does that all the time with their houses. So they take over an inventory home, they always have an inspection done, and then they'll have the buyer sign off on the inspection.
That's smart.
The buyer is totally free to, again, have another home inspection, have their inspector come in while you're under contract.
Sure.
But it's just to show the buyer, hey, look, we actually were proactive, and we had an inspection done by a licensed service provider, and these are the findings, and we're happy to share it with you because we don't have anything to hide.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think of when I hear people selling homes, and this happened back when everything was really hot. I used to hear people say, I need to get X out of my house.
Yes.
And I used to think to myself, and I had this conversation with my wife. I love her to death.
Yeah.
But when we were selling in Chicago, the market started sliding, and she's like, we need to get,
Right.
And I'm like, the market really doesn't care what we need to get.
No, exactly.
The market dictates what's going on here. You don't. So that pre-inspection is sort of can be an eye-opener and make things real and take some of the emotional piece out of it for you as a seller, and obviously for the agent, because you can go through that together, I would imagine. And I never did that, but that's good advice.
Yeah.
Cool. So Last question.
Yes.
You've been in Libertyville a long time. Mm-hmm. What do you like most about it? And if you were to give one piece of advice, you know, you've got your ear to the ground, you know the business landscape, you know the inventory, real estate, all that stuff. If the mayor called you and said, hey, give me one piece of advice, what would you give him, given your perspective?
Call Mike Madigan and tell him to freeze our property taxes. They're too high. You know, gosh, keep doing what you're doing. Terry has done a wonderful job keeping the spirit of Libertyville. There's no question a sense of the new urbanism going on in Libertyville. There's a lot of neighboring communities and communities across Chicago that are looking at Libertyville and going, wow, they're not milking cows up there. They actually have it kind of going on. Well, that's kind of the perception, right? We're so far north, right?
When we moved from Chicago to Libertyville, my neighbor, honest to God, a great guy, my neighbor goes, man, I don't know why you're going up there. They don't even have a police station or a fire department.
Right.
And we're
there's all these like,
dude, what are you talking about?
Totally.
I drove past the fire.
Totally. Yeah. And you come here and you're like, wow, this is like kind of cool. I love the uniqueness of Libertyville, separate from downtown, right? But all the different neighborhoods. Libertyville has many different neighborhoods, Copeland Manor, Greenbrier, the Heritage area, for example,
right.
And it's very unique. In addition, I love what Terry's doing to try to make the south end of town feel like they're a part of the community. I've always felt like there's kind of two Libertyvilles. There's kind of like what's going on downtown, and then there's the south end with all the dealerships, right? I mean, a lot of people come to Libertyville to buy a car, and I've always felt that that's overlooked and hasn't been acknowledged. And I know Terry has made an effort to really try to blend the two together and make the dealership world very much feel part of the community, because to be perfectly frank, if all the dealerships were to go away, we'd be in trouble, right? I mean, the town there'd be a lot of jobs that would leave, and then the tax base, right?
The tax base is
totally
big.
So we need to appreciate them more, and I know that Terry's done a good job doing that.
Yeah, I think there's more work. That would be my challenge for Terry. I love him. I couldn't agree more with you.
Right.
But I think there's more work to be done on that angle.
Right.
I think that's good. All right, man. Well,
okay,
good talking to you.
Jimmy, thanks, man.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
That's a wrap, George.